Hi, I'm Claude Whitacre. I'm a sales trainer, I'm a business owner, I've written books on selling and prospecting and closing. One of the questions I get over and over and over again is somebody will ask me, Claude, how many times should I attempt to close a sale on one call? Is it one time? Is there a magic formula? Frankly, I hear this over and over again where somebody will say, well, it takes 5 closing attempts before somebody says yes. I've heard that, I don't know, so many times my ears are bleeding from hearing this so many times. The truth of the matter is that most of the times, for me personally, it either takes 1 closing attempt or no closing attempt. In other words, they just said, yes, I want to buy this, or it takes 1 closing attempt. Here's a question I have for you. You've been out buying things. Everybody does. So think of the last thing that you bought that was expensive that you really, really wanted. How many closing attempts did it take the salesman to get you to buy? Well, when I'm giving seminars, I'll ask that question of the audience. I'll say, think of the last thing that you bought that was really expensive. Let's say your last car that you bought. And then people are thinking, okay, it's many thousands of dollars, certainly. Well, how many closing attempts did that salesman have to go through before you decided to go ahead and buy? The answer invariably is either 1 or none. So why is this 5 closing attempts? You know, why do we hear that? Well, here's where that originally came from. Back in the 1950s, there was an advertising agency that ran a focus group, and what they found was that it took 5 repetitions of a company's brand name before the focus group audience actually could remember the name of the brand. That doesn't mean that they bought anything. It doesn't mean that they were closed on anything. It simply means that they remembered the name of the brand. So what ends up happening, though, is that one statistic that it takes 5 repetitions to remember a brand name, that became eventually, it takes 5 repetitions to buy something. You have to run ads 5 times before somebody responds. It takes 5 closing attempts before they buy. All of that is nonsense. Okay, it doesn't take 5 closing attempts to buy. So the question is, how do you know when to stop closing? I have the answer. When you're talking to somebody about your product, at the end, after you've asked them to buy and then they give you an objection and you ask them, you answer the objection or you answer their question, you ask them to buy again, this is what's going to happen. It's going to become very, very obvious to you. Either the client or prospect is becoming closer to buying or they're pulling away. They're doing one or the other. In other words, every time they give you an objection or a question and you answer it, and then you say, does that sound like something you would like to do? Or something like, some simple closing question like that. After you ask that question, they either are closer to buying, and you can tell by their body language and by the way that they're asking other questions and all that, or they're further away from buying. See, they become, if they become less interested, or they start leaning back, or they start wrapping their fingers, or looking at their watch, or any of the signs that they're just not interested, those people have already decided not to buy. And you can continue, if they're polite enough, they'll let you close 3 or 4 or 5 more times in an attempt for them to buy, but they're not going to buy. They've decided they're not going to buy. As long as you continue closing, and every time you're done closing, they get closer to buying, and it's going to be obvious to you that they are, then continue closing. Because some people simply don't buy quickly. It has to kind of sink in that they're buying. They have to get used to the idea that they're buying. And frankly, sometimes that takes just a little bit of time. So as long as they're asking me questions that indicate that there's an interest and that they're asking better questions and that they're asking questions that people that buy ask, like, now how do I contact you if I need service? That's a good question. As long as they're asking questions like that, I continue. Again, by the way, I wrote a book called One Call Closing. It's on Amazon.com. Please follow the link, and thank you very much.